The final chapter this semester is on cancer. There's about 100 different types of cancer, and the term tumor refers to any abnormal proliferation of cells. Now, benign tumors remain confined to the original location, and they're neither invading surrounding tissue, nor do they spread to other parts of the body. Now, a malignant tumor can invade surrounding normal tissue and spread throughout the body. And this particular process, when it gets through the circulatory and lymphatic system, is called metastasis. Most cancers are in three main groups. The first group is carcinoma. That's when you have malignancies of epithelial cells. That's about 90% of human cancers. Sarcomas are solid tumors of connective tissue such as muscle, bone, cartilage, and fibrous tissue, and they're more rare in humans. Leukemias and lymphomas, they arise from blood-forming cells and your immune system cells, respectively. So tumors are further classified according to the tissue of origin and the type of cell involved. Only a few types of cancer occur frequently. The four most common cancers are prostate, breast, lung, and colon rectum. Lung cancer by far is the most lethal, and it's responsible for nearly 30% of all cancer deaths. Now, one of the reasons for that, class, is that by the time a lot of people get diagnosed, the cancer is either stage 3 or 4 or actually metastatic. So a lot of times it's too late to actually do anything at that point. This is just a list then of the number of deaths per year. And again, you guys can see right at the top here, 158,000 deaths per year in the United States as a result of lung cancer. So one of the features that we have to look at in cancer is what we call clonality. And tumors develop from single cells that begin to proliferate abnormally. The single cell origin has been demonstrated by analysis of X chromosome inactivation patterns. So basically, you take a look at different cells and you look at inactive versus active. And here's an initial tumor cell right here. Now, as time goes on and a tumor develops, what you see, you've got normal cells over here, but more and more you're picking up different abnormalities in the tumor cells themselves. So it's a multi-step process. It occurs gradually. It doesn't happen all at once. And one indication is that most cancers develop late in life, and that's due to a lot of different things that happen. There's accumulations of abnormalities, etc., as we age. If we look at some statistics between males and females, if you look at from birth to about 49 years old, females have slightly more cancer. However, that starts to shift in our 50s, definitely in our 60s, and look at what happens when you get to 70 and older. The number of men that have cancer is higher than women. Now, tumor initiation is when you have mutations that lead to abnormal proliferation of a single cell. Then that is going to grow into a population of tumor cells. Now, the tumor progression is when you get more mutations that occur within that tumor population. So malignant types of carcinomas will arise then from benign adenomas. And the tumor cells will invade underlying connective tissue. Eventually, they will penetrate, for instance, in colon cancer, colon walls and invade other abdominal organs, blood, and lymphatic vessels. So if we take a look here, guys, and this is for colon cancer. Here's your basal lamina here, and you've got the first cell that's going to start to mutate. Then you get more of them going this way, eventually they start to go on top of each other and you get what's called an adenoma. As time goes on, you can see that it gets larger, and eventually you're starting to break down then, or the cells are producing different enzymes to actually move and eventually can get into the lymph and the blood vessels. So any substance that can cause cancer is called a carcinogen. So radiation can cause that. There's chemicals that can cause that. They damage the DNA and induce mutations. Solar ultraviolet radiation is a major cause of skin cancers. Even toxins, and aflatoxin is one that's produced from certain molds that can actually contaminate grain and peanuts. Other carcinogens are what are called tumor promoters, and that stimulates cell proliferation. So hormones can do that. So estrogen, for instance, can increase the likelihood that a woman will develop uterine cancer. So there's some characteristic properties, guys, that all cancer cells share. Usually uncontrolled proliferation, reduced dependent on growth factors. So usually the cells have to be stimulated with growth factors, but as time goes on, they don't need that anymore. They don't have to adhere. So that's a big thing. Usually cells have to, especially epithelial cells, have to adhere to a matrix. Proteases get secreted. That's how they actually get out and into your system. Promotion of angiogenesis, and I'll talk about that in a sec. Abnormal differentiation. If cells can't die, guys, well, they survive. They continue to live, and they are capable then of replicating forever. Basically, they become immortal. Now, cancer cells are not restricted by cell-to-cell contact or growth factor availability. Our cells are designed such that once one cell undergoes apoptosis, there'll be cell division to kind of fill in the gap, and as soon as the cells are next to each other, they will stop to grow. But cancer cells do not do that. So they can grow to pretty high densities. So if you follow in an experiment, and sadly we couldn't work on any of this in the lab, but normal cells will look like this. They start to grow, and then eventually when they reach a certain density, they become quiescent, so they're not dividing anymore. Tumor cells, however, will start to proliferate in a monolayer, but if you look at this, they start to fill up then this culture dish as proliferation continues. So they're less regulated by the cell-to-cell and cell matrix interactions. And they secrete these proteases then, again, guys, that help them to invade. Now, cancer cells will secrete growth factors that promote formation of new blood vessels. So this process then of angiogenesis shows that the cells are releasing these factors. They're recruiting blood vessels. The blood vessels then are needed to supply oxygen and nutrients. So they actually recruit those to the tumor, and they're feeding the tumor then. Now, a lot of cancer cells don't undergo apoptosis. So again, they have longer lifespans. Now, normal cells also have limited amounts of telomerase, and you guys know where your telomeres are. So what happens then is they gradually lose telomeres, leading to cessation of replication. So the cells stop dividing, basically. But cancer cells will express high levels of telomerase, and that allows them to maintain the chromosome ends, and they have an indefinite number of cell division. There's also what are known as oncoviruses, and these are viruses that can cause cancer in humans and animals as well. So here's just an example, guys, of some of the different types of tumor viruses. Hepatitis B virus, papillomaviruses, so HBV, guys, herpes viruses, adenoviruses, etc. All of these can cause then cancer in humans. An oncogene is technically a specific gene that will induce cell transformation. So any type of gene that can cause cancer then is considered an oncogene. A proto-oncogene will be in normal cells, and basically it's believed that the viruses played an important role in us actually getting these oncogenes in the first place. So some examples, if you guys remember me talking about RAS before and RAF, these are considered proto-oncogenes, so they can become cancerous. And here's a whole list of those guys. Memorize that. I'm just kidding.